All right, episode 5, Roll for Mastery. We're
We're
working
gonna have
on
to use
cutting down our
fingers from now on.
2 hour videos into smaller chunks that are more digestible and palatable at about an hour. So we see how we do now. We just did one, and we'll see how we do with this one here. So if anyone's watching and watched episode 4 and now watching episode
What
5,
session 2 videos?
yes, we are wearing the same clothes because it's only been 5 minutes since we stopped recording the last one and moving on to the next one. Okay, I changed my background a little bit, but other than that,
Right.
it's the same, same thing, same scenario. So we had some difficulty in the technical difficulties on episode number 4, the last one that we just did, because I tried to get a little fancy and sharing different screens for the purpose of the video for YouTube, and in the process, I screwed up and lost Julie's audio. But we got it back, and looks like we have it back now. I figured out what I did wrong.
Woo.
There's an
We
actual
know where the settings are now.
yeah, there's an actual checkbox I need to engage or check to allow Julie's audio. It's not default checked, so which is kind of shitty on OBS, but it's free software, so I can't really complain, right? I can't complain.
Getting what you pay for.
Yeah, I definitely, well, I'm getting more than what I pay for, the way I see it, but yeah, sometimes you get what you pay for. And when I look over here to my right, I'm looking at my other monitor that has the OBS software, so I'm not just being rude and looking away. So, all right, so Julie, last night I played with you in 5e.
Friday
Um,
night.
Yeah, Friday night. That was last night. Um,
Oh, right. I swear today is Sunday. That's Easter. It's because
no.
it's a holiday.
And yeah, it was different. It was different. It kind of further supported that 5e is not quite for me. I like the in-person role play. I like being with people and playing in person. I like that, and it's D&D. I like that, but the actual 5e edition, it's not for me. It's not.
It's overly complicated sometimes, but I do like to use the complication to my advantage.
Now, but
So,
just the same though, correct me if I'm wrong, but in that DMG that you haven't read, somewhere there's a section for like hardcore gritty rules or something. There's a chapter for that. Don't make me open it up.
the for 5e Dungeon Master's Guide. So
Yeah.
the Dungeon Master's Guide has you can pull up additional there's supplementary information for additional hazards inside of dungeons. I don't know about how nitty-gritty with the rules it gets, but I definitely know that there's things about poison, there's things about potions, there's things about
No,
food,
because isn't there a
madness.
section
Uh
that includes like the long rest where you don't get all your spells back or all your hit points back and stuff?
Yeah, you can do modified rests. Chase tried to tell us one time, and I don't know if this is in the DMG or not, but he said that where a short rest is a long rest, the definition
Yep.
becomes long rest, and a long rest is actually like a vacation where you like stop adventuring for like a week, and that's a long rest. And a short rest is at 8 hours, 12 hours. And short rest, what used to be short rest, doesn't exist anymore. So there's no you take a 1 hour breather and get your hit points back without your spell slots, or like warlocks get all their stuff back because they're silly little squishy beans um, in fifth edition. But he said that I can't remember if it's for a Pathfinder thing or if it's just something he saw online. But short rest doesn't exist. Long rest
No. Okay.
is
Here it is. Here it is in
vacation,
the in the
and short
DMG
rest becomes long rest.
5e DMG page 267 under the section of Master of Rules, subsection Dungeon Master's Workshop, subsection Adventuring Options. So it is here. I'm gonna read it here to you. So rest variants. The rules for short rests and long rests presented in Chapter 8 of the Player's Handbook work well for a heroic style campaign, i.e. 5e. Characters can go toe-to-toe with deadly foes, take damage to within an inch of their lives, yet still be ready to fight again the next day. Yeah, that's the big issue I have, right? If this approach doesn't fit your campaign, consider the following variants. Epic heroism. Okay, we're not going to talk about that. Oh, a short rest is 5 minutes, and a long rest is an hour. Epic heroism. Okay? The flip side of that is gritty realism. This variant uses a short rest of 8 hours and a long rest of 7 days. This
Yeah,
puts the
see?
brakes on the campaign, requiring the players to carefully judge the benefits and drawbacks of combat. Characters can't afford to engage in too many battles in a row, and all adventuring requires careful planning. This approach encourages the characters to spend time out of the dungeon. It's a good option for campaigns that emphasize intrigue, politics, and interactions among other NPCs, and in which combat is rare or something to be avoided rather than rushed into. Yeah, that'd be more for me. Yeah,
Chase explained it to me one time. I thought
yeah.
it was interesting. Maybe not for Strahd, because Strahd is a little intense to begin with, but
I don't know why firearms are here. If you want to model the swashbuckling style of the Three Musketeers and similar tales, you can introduce gunpowder weapons. F
yeah,
no,
that's the same in Eberron.
no,
Eberron
F
is
no, no,
steampunk,
no, no,
and
and
it
a
uses
bomb.
weapons and
No,
things.
it is a medieval fantasy role-playing game. There's no gunpowder. Fuck that. No, I said it. No, bullshit. That's not D&D. That's not
Oops.
D&D. Oh my God, you got me going. I got myself going. Dynamite,
I was about to
grenades.
say I didn't say anything.
What the fudge? Pistols and
That's like
muskets?
Eberron.
No, this is
Yeah,
bullshit.
Eberron is steampunk.
That's not Dungeons and Dragons at all. Gary Gygax must be doing backflips in his grave.
LOL.
All right. And y'all wonder why I don't like 5e. Okay, that's not what we're here to talk about.
No.
We're not here to bash on 5e. It just worked out that way. All right. So so we wanted to talk about finding a combat balance or encounter balance, specifically on the combat side of encounters, as to making sure, and again, actually, I guess fair is perhaps the better word choice because it doesn't have to be
Right.
balanced to be
Oh,
fair. Oh, you're muted. What?
I said I was muted, but I
Yeah.
guess I thought I was not muted. Sorry.
Because there's a difference between being fair and balanced. You can be fair and not be balanced. And I think that's in D&D, in the realm of D&D, social media and YouTube and all that, we hear that all the time. Balance encounters, balance, 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 and there's challenge ratings and all this to find a balance. And it doesn't freaking have to
Right.
be balanced. That's the whole concept of the big boss guy, right? It's not going to be balanced. It's going to be unbalanced in favor of the bad guy, and that creates the challenge for the players to overcome the obstacle that's working against them. But that's not to say it's not fair, because you have one or two bad guys and you have a party of four, six, eight characters. That's where the kind of the balancing or the fairness comes into play. So, all right. So, how how do we find that balance, if you will, or that fairness in a combat situation? First it's going to
Do you
come.
mind if I apologize. Do you mind if I step away really quick? Can we pause the
Yeah,
video?
I can pause. You ready? And
I'm sorry.
pause. All right, and we're back. We paused for a moment because Julie had to step away, but she has returned to grace us with her presence. Okay, so
Sorry.
you had the topic or the request for topic of finding this balance, right, in encounters. Obviously, the implication is combat encounters, but I think it's important to consider or be aware and differentiate between fairness and balance, right? Because it doesn't have to be balanced in order to be fair. Those are not
No,
synonymous. Not synonymous at
especially
all.
if you're doing it for role play reasons. There's you play video games sometimes. Well, you might not, but people play video games sometimes where something happens for story and you lose. You're not supposed to win, and your character dies, and then the story moves on. But some gamers are really sweaty, and they will a term meaning that they try hard. They're tryhards, and they will try to beat it anyway, even though you're not supposed to. And it's not that it's not fair, it's that it's story relevant. You guys are supposed to pass out, it's going to happen. I have to have you guys pass out. Sorry. Or you meet a dragon and you piss the dragon off on accident, and he, tries to fight you for a couple minutes, and it's not fair, and it's an overwhelming situation. But then he decides, you know what? Hold on, wait, let's just restart, guys. Start from square one. We came off on the wrong foot, because it's story relevant, but you still have to play it out, you know?
I think that before we really delve into this, I think that too many DMs, and I'll raise my hand on occasion on this, don't want to see characters die. And character death is okay. It's part of the game. It just is part of the game. It happens. If it doesn't happen, then there's no risk. If there's no risk, then there should be no reward.
Not fun.
Right,
Yeah.
it's not fun because it's an automatic win, so to speak, right? So if I know I'm going to, like, where's the joy in that? How do you feel accomplished if things are stacked in your favor and you win? So
Hero complex.
I'm just going to toss that out there. It's okay if your character dies. Yeah, it sucks, but it's not the end of the world. It's a game. Roll up a new character. We'll keep playing. All right. So with that said, um, how do you handle a quote unquote imbalance, or how do you prevent that in a social encounter?
Socially imbalanced?
Yeah. How? Because
How so?
okay, so last night the entire night was social, right?
Yes.
Play
Exploration and social.
well, okay,
They
characters.
explored the
Your
house.
your player characters were socially interacting with the NPCs, some of the characters in this town or this village, right? So you rely on dice rolls to determine persuasion or intimidation and so on and so forth.
You can. You
So,
can always turn it around if it doesn't. You could role play it around if it doesn't work out.
well, that's where I'm going. So
Yeah.
how do you keep that fair and balanced and still maintain player agency? Because while you're saying, you can kind of work it around, you can role play, and I agree with you, and there are times for that. But when you do that, especially after a die roll, then you're potentially pulling away player agency. If they make a shitty die
Yeah.
roll and for persuasion, and they know that, they know they rolled a 2, right? I rolled a 4 or something last night. I know I wasn't successful. It doesn't matter what the hell I was trying to do on a charisma check. I rolled a 4. So that wasn't going to work. So I know that. But if you then turn around and said, "Oh yeah, she fell for my advancement," like I was trying to flirt with this character. My character was trying to flirt with the NPC. And I rolled a 4 on this, and if which should be a failure, and it was. But if you then turned around and made it a success, what does that tell me as the player? That tells me my
That
die
I don't
roll
need to
didn't
roll.
really matter, right?
Right.
So how, and I don't have a good answer, but how do you do that as the DM? Like you said, to kind of turn it around because it's story relevant, or you need that to fuel the story, in a sense. How do you do that?
You have to try and convince them, is usually what I have to come up with. So I ran that tavern one shot, and in the tavern one shot is another like fortune teller. She's not as crazy all powerful as this one that you guys heard about, but she has enough vision, and she has a specific dribble of plot relevant information. But I offered the party individual readings and a group reading, and they didn't really understand that I meant that the group reading was more important than the individual, and all of them were like, individual reading! And I'm like, oh my god. I was like, fuck. And so every time somebody else walked up to the table to get an individual reading, I was like, well, now there's more of you. You guys want to do a group reading? And then somebody would like, no, I don't want to. I'd be like, crap. And then another person would walk up. So now that there's 5 of you, can we do that group reading now? And eventually they were like, okay, yeah, sure, fine. And I was like,
Okay.
thank you.
Now that
But
though sounds like you're walking the line of railroading.
Well, I had to for story,
No? Okay, okay.
Then
Well,
there comes a point where you have to.
so you asked me another. You texted me, messaged me, whatever. Another topic for discussion: player agency versus story.
Story,
Right?
yeah.
Okay.
And
So
yeah,
maybe right now we're not going to talk about combat balancing and challenge ratings and fairness, but maybe we're going to talk about this agency versus story. So, what's more important, play agency or story? So, what happens if they decide, for example, in this case, to not do a group reading? They don't take your suggestion, if you will, or you're nudging them in that direction, and they don't get that story relevant information, then they don't have it. Then they're at a loss, and then
you put in
they
a
have to
second.
play at that disadvantage, so to speak.
You put in a second, a second source of information
So right, so that information maybe
instead of a
can be
fortune
offered
telling is a letter.
can be offered to them later through another NPC in some sort of interaction, or maybe they find a letter or a map or something else, right? Um, or maybe they just don't get it, and then
Oh yeah,
they don't get it at
I'm
all.
bad.
They don't get it at all. They missed it. Just like if you miss a secret door, or then you miss it, and behind that door was all the treasure. You missed it.
So in Mines of Phandelver, there's a rubble pile in the big crack before you guys went to fight the big bad guy. And in that rubble pile was a magic weapon. And I really wanted you guys to find it for the boss fight, and nobody did. And I
And
was like, ooh,
and that's okay. Like it's okay to miss stuff.
it's hard for me because I know what it is. And I was like, ooh, that would be so fun. But
But yeah, it's
it
okay.
happens, and you're allowed to miss things,
Yes.
and it's part of player agency. It's not up to me that they didn't find the chest. It's up to them. They rolled poorly. It is what it is.
So it's
There's a
okay
secret
if they don't get
door.
that
They missed it.
story relevant piece of information. They'll figure out some other way. You'll sneak in just a crumb over here and a crumb over there, and it won't be all at once.
I've crumbed them a lot last on Friday. They got a lot of crumbs.
So it's up to them. It's up to them to piece it together. And I'll give you an example. In our Tuesday night game, which is against the Cult of the Reptile God, first edition. Okay? You guys spend a lot of time in the village of Orlane figuring out what's been happening, figured out what was going on, figured out where the big bad guy is, a week's travel away, and you said, we're going to go get him. So you travel a week distance. Now, meanwhile, well, not meanwhile, prior to that, in the village, one of the village elders, Romney, he had said to the party, after you go to the temple, come back and talk to me. And
And we left.
you guys got enthusiastic and left the town.
Poor
Okay?
Romney.
So that was kind of what you call that was a story relevant thing that the party has now missed. Okay? And
Poor
so
guy.
what did I say? So
Couldn't get a lock of hair. Couldn't get any
no,
information.
he had much more to offer than a lock of hair. He had much more to offer to be of assistance to the party, but the party neglected that, or chose not to
Forgot.
pursue that. Okay,
No
in
way,
their
we
excitement to
forgot.
go find the big bad evil guy.
We
And
forgot.
I'm willing to share it now because, in a sense, it doesn't matter. You guys have 5 days travel away from him, and you're already down in the dungeon crawl, so it's not going to happen for you guys to go back and say, "Hey,
No.
Romney, what did you want to tell us?" So So what did I do? I said, well, like they kind of like you said, they kind of needed that information. They needed to talk to him. Well, okay. Well, guess what? On the map you guys have, it shows elves. So guess what? There's an elven village, and in the elven village you find this character and that character and that character. You know.
And they give you all this information.
So I didn't spoon feed it. The information was there for you guys to find, right? Or whatever Romney had to offer was there for you to find, and you guys found some, but to a lesser extent because it didn't come from Romney.
No.
What you were in essence supposed to get from Romney, you guys didn't get it from him. So I couldn't just give you
No.
everything, right? Otherwise,
It would
then
be
that means
inorganic.
Romney had no agency. He had no relevance in the story. right? So you lost out on that. You lost out on 100% what Romney had to offer. So I offered you guys like 30% in other ways. So it kind of, I don't want to say gave you, but I gave you something, but it's not what you should have had.
Right. Last night I realized that Barovia can only make wine. It can't support farm life for any other plants. And I accidentally gave Chase's character and Nee's character cider, which is made out of apples. And so I had to be like, you drink your cider thinking it's cider, and guess what? It's wine. Surprise, it's wine.
Yeah, so
And
like,
then
and when that
they had
happens,
beer.
go ahead.
They had beer, and I had to tell them, well, the beer tastes old and crappy because it's an import, because it's not made here. It tastes like stale old beer because it was imported. They can't make beer here. It doesn't exist. And I missed it. I missed that information. So I had to, like, guess what? You drink your cup and it's wine. Surprise! Enjoy!
So hang on. Okay.
And then
Um,
Irina was drinking a glass of like grape juice, almost wine, the next morning at the house. And she was like, I can't drink tea. I can't drink coffee. It doesn't grow here. So I'm just stuck drinking grape juice in the morning.
so yeah, and when that happens at the DM, like you gotta somehow come up with something pretty quick to justify that or explain that. Because you don't want to go back and say, oh, well, when possible. You don't want to go back and
Oh,
say,
fuck,
oh,
I
I
messed
made a
up.
mistake. It was wine, not cider. And sometimes you do that, and that's okay too. But if you can somehow make a smooth
Weave
transition
it.
in your actual role playing, all the better. Right? Like you said, oh, you
Weave
yes. At first, it kind of tasted like a cider, but as you continue to drink it, you began to, appreciate the fermentation of the grapes or something. It was a little misleading on that first swig, but the aftertaste, you definitely appreciated the grapes. Something to that effect, and that's how you can kind of like backpedal without just having to
Yeah.
say, "Oh,
I role
nope,
played
sorry,
that
it was actually wine."
I role played that the bartender was an asshole and said yes to cider and just brought you one anyway.
So, there are ways to do it, but you have to be, I guess, a little witty, a little cunning, a little quick on your
Yeah.
feet to pull that off without having to just to simply backpedal. But like, sometimes, if you backpedal, you backpedal. I mean, it's not the end of the world.
The other thing about story versus agency is to make them think it's their idea is the other one. Make it think that they want to do it, or make them think that they want to do a thing you want them to do. Especially my table. My table is sadly, and I said this out loud last night when I was talking to Mike, is that I can convince my table if I role play well enough to try and get them to do the things that they got to do or not got to do in order to maintain the correct direction. Maybe even not correct direction, but the intended direction,
So that
which
that
is slight
happens.
railroading. But
The reason why that happens, though, with players, and obviously this would apply to your table, I suppose, is because they believe everything the DM is role playing as being
mm,
accurate and truthful. Now, as a player with me, that's not always the case,
oh,
right?
you're a lying piece of shit. Sometimes I want to roll insight on
Um,
you all the time, and
so
I can't.
for me in 1E, um, what I'll have the players, or they will ask me like, "Hey, is this guy believable? Like, does my character really believe him?" I'll say, "All right, well, make me a charisma check." 'Cause that's what we use for like closest we have for like social perception, right?
Yeah,
I know in 5e perception is wisdom, but this is a social thing. So charisma. So
insight is 5e.
insight, is that charisma?
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
I think it's
I can't
wisdom.
remember.
Anyway, so the in 1e I have them make a roll, right? And I use a sliding scale. So
Right, to not hide the information
right,
behind the roll.
so
And I
if
sent you that. Did you look at that chart that I sent
no,
you?
not yet. So
Brett.
if for example this character needs to roll a 12 to determine if the NPC is being truthful or not. Let's say they need to roll a 12 or less, okay? And they roll a 13. Well, that's pretty close, right? You're only off by one tick mark, one point on the die. So then the PC may be convinced. that the
Right.
guy's being truthful because he's feeling pretty confident. Likewise, if he rolled an 11, so technically he made the roll, but not by much. So, I use a sliding scale on that
I'm
as to
trying to
their
find it.
success. And the question was, do I believe what this guy is telling me? So maybe you do, maybe you don't. And maybe he is being true. And oftentimes, this is what I find with your table, no one asks for that. And that's why
No, they just believe
and that's
me.
why they believe everything you as the DM who's playing the NPCs what you tell them, they believe it all. You can lie to them through your
And now they
teeth,
got
that
dream
NPC,
tide.
and they're going to believe it. No one says, "Hey man, does my character really believe him?" You know? And the reason why players should do that is because most people who play D&D are not professional actors, not professional
No,
voice actors, right?
no.
Okay, you watch Critical Role Dimension 20, well, that's not D&D, but anyway, where most people are not them, okay? So therefore, the DM may be trying to be convincing as they're role playing that NPC, but they're not doing a good job because they're just not a good
You
voice
can tell that
actor,
they're
right?
lying.
They're trying, but they're doing the best they can, and they're not sounding very convincing. So if the player doesn't question their character as to whether that NPC is believable, they're going to say, "Man, this guy's lying to me. Man, I don't believe him at all," and just move on.
It means I
Versus saying,
role
"Hey,
played for Annie so
does my
good.
character believe him? Does he sound convincing to me?" In essence, in recognition that we're not voice actors, and that's what I
No,
think your group kind of, I don't want to say that they lack, or they don't ask that question. They don't take advantage of that perception check or whatever it might be, insight check.
oh, here it is. I found it. It just means that I mean it. I think it's great for me because it means that I role played really good. For me personally, I role
Yes.
played that little old lady so good that they believed her and they took her shit. And now they're finding out that maybe it wasn't a good idea to take her shit.
I agree with your role playing and what you're saying. Hey man, I did really well with that. I agree with you. But
Could I
like,
have made it more apparent? Yes. Did I want to? No, because I wanted them to get their fucking thumbs up their butts and I wanted them to get caught. Not caught, but I wanted them in it because it's so like part of the entire campaign. It's like something memorable of the campaign. And like Artie, that was the first thing that Artie asked me. He asked me, he said, "Do they know what the dream pies are made of yet?" And I go, "Artie, stop." Like he knew and he hasn't even played the campaign.
well, he knows
He's
a lot.
like
He
read
seems to
through
know.
it.
Yeah, he knows a lot about this campaign. I will say that.
I think he Reddits it a lot. I think he sits on Reddit all day.
Yeah, he
Poor
spent
guy.
he spends a lot of time on D&D online stuff. Um, yes, yes.
To
Okay.
each their own.
Um, well, I mean, I do too. But all right. So
I wanted them to have a memorable event and I wanted to role play it to where they wouldn't have caught on, but there are fail safes and I even have lies for if they try to detect things
hmm
that they shouldn't be detecting. And that's not just that one character. I have a couple characters that are like that.
okay.
They do this
So
spell to try to do this thing and here's the reason why it is a lie
all
and
right.
you're
So
supposed to
in
like
in
play it
5e
off.
in 5e, if a character asks that NPC, that woman, a question, okay,
And she lies.
you as the DM role play that out, right? So you decide how that character is going to answer the question. And that's where the kind of story relevance kind of balancing comes in, right? Do I give them what they need to know? Do I tell them
Right.
to throw them off so they need to like figure it out on their own? Or do I feed them even a complete absolute lie so they go off on the wrong path And they need to say, oh shit, man, she must have lied to us. We're 3 days into travel. You know, so do you ever, I shouldn't say do you ever, is there a mechanic where you as the DM would say, roll for this to help, and so it'll determine if she's truthful to them or not, or what kind of response she gives?
Response she gives is determined because I play pre-made things. It's usually already predetermined. If the party wants to roll insight against her, they find her suspicious. I would have to have role played her suspiciously. But in this specific example, I didn't. I role played her very sweet, very kind, very um, you know, unbecoming. I didn't put a lot of attention on certain things. I didn't put any attention on her appearance or on, that she avoids the question of what's inside of her wares. I didn't do any of that because then it would have drawn attention and then my party members would have caught on. And I didn't want that because I wanted them to get dream pied.
Hmm. Okay.
It's usually insight. People get the sus and then they're like, I want to roll insight. Which is very against the players asking the DM to roll. But that's probably one of the only cases I can think of where that's accurate, unless it's I want to roll to seduce. I want to roll to hit on this lady
Yeah, okay,
because
so
the DM's not going to do that.
right. And that's like a pet peeve for me as the DM. Don't ask me to roll something. The player
Those
does
two,
not ask. Right, but at that, they shouldn't say, "Can I roll for this?" They should say, "I would like to try to seduce her." Right?
oh, correct. They could
Right.
phrase it.
Now, but even at that, I would still encourage them to role play that out a little bit, something to help me see how well this character is going to do that, because that might influence that role with a bonus or a penalty or something, right?
My
Be,
players get cocky and they give me their entire plan, and then I make them roll. They
be,
don't expect me to say, okay, roll.
because it's a role playing game, right? It's an RPG, role playing game. And to just say, my character wants to seduce this person, that's not role playing at all.
Yeah, how do you want to do it? Tell me.
Yeah,
Give me the details.
that's not role playing at all.
And then I'll let you roll.
You need to role playing is talking through things, talking out loud, talking through things in character. It doesn't mean voices, but in character you need to describe, not just a verb, right? So you need to describe how you want to seduce this person. And you describe it, and then you might be shitty at describing it, and that's where the die rolls come in to determine how well your character actually did that. Just like we're talking about if the NPC is lying or not, or being truthful, or whether the characters believe what the NPC is telling them. So the DM may not be good at role playing that out and to sound convincing. And that's when the player should say, "Does she sound believable? Does that sound right?" Okay, make a
Well,
roll,
yeah, and so that
make a roll for whatever it is, right? In order to determine that. So you don't have to be good at role playing, but you need to role play. So you can't
no,
just say,
right.
"I want to seduce." No, no, no. So, okay.
I'm
So,
not gonna role play your role play. Sorry,
yeah.
it's not happening. Tell me how you doing it.
All right. So, obviously, we're talking a little more about balancing social interactions and agency versus story. So, I believe that agency is more important than story as a generalized statement. Because if the players don't have agency, then why are they playing? If they want a story, they can read a book.
Or play a video game.
Right. So a quick sidebar on that. I'll get in the soapbox here for a couple seconds. When D&D came out in the late 70s, it was called an RPG, right? Now they call it a TTRPG, a tabletop
Tabletop.
role-playing game. No, bullshit. It's a role-playing game. This is me being the old guy 1E, right? It's a role-playing game. It's an RPG. Why do they call the video games a VRPG or VGRPG? A video
Video
game.
game, role
Okay?
playing game.
No, for some reason the video games have become RPGs, and the original RPGs have been
Video
recoined to be a
role playing game.
TTRPG. No, no. D&D is an
for
RPG.
the selling.
I don't know. It's a whole other marketing thing and who 5e was created for and all this stuff. But anyway, all right, that was just my soapbox for a couple seconds. Getting back
Oh
on
well.
topic. All right, agency versus story. So I say agency is more important than the story. Without agency, why
So
play?
there, I think it should be a balance because if
Agreed,
it's a
agreed.
full sandbox, then who knows what they're doing.
Sandboxes don't work. They really
Right,
don't.
and
They really don't.
that's full player agency. That's just the players, just all the time, deciding what players want to do, and consequences and actions, and they make the story, end it, done. Railroading is too much of the DM, like what you had said before about the gate. You come up to a town gate.
Yeah,
Oh, you try to open the gate. Oh, it doesn't work. Oh, you try to talk to the guard. Oh, he shuts you down. Oh, there's a door on the side. Oh, the door's open. Um, where that's super railroading. Yeah, I think it should be somewhere in the middle where it's you go up to the gate and the town guard asks you a question and oh you roll this roll, oh you guys suck, okay now you guys are hashing it out with the town guard, oh my god what's going on, and then it becomes a role play with the town guard for an hour and a half to try and get into this town, and then at night you guys hurl yourselves over the wall 007 style because you guys got into a fight with the town guard, and now you're slightly wanted and have to explain yourself.
agreed. Completely agreed. Yes, sandboxing doesn't work. People like
Nope.
to say they're doing sandboxing campaigns, and they're not fun because there's no guide, there's no actual, I don't want to say story, but there's no adventure,
No
right? All you can do
progression.
is walk around town and do random shit. There's no adventure, there's no campaign, there's no module. So no, it doesn't work. Complete opposite, obviously, railroading. That's not fun for anyone, and that comes down to bad DMs, unprepared DMs, bad DMs, and experienced DMs. And then in the middle is you called it the other day, roller coastering. I think perhaps, which was I haven't heard that before. I think maybe you were looking for
Pushing them into
a
the right
linear,
direction.
right, a linear campaign, right, which will involve perhaps a little bit of guidance through NPCs, um, kind of relying on good players to kind of take the bait, if you will, the plot hook, right, and linear in the sense that when this happens, then this can happen. When this happens, that can happen. Like things are predicated, one thing's predicated upon another. There are certain steps, a sequence, if you will, in line, linear, in order for things to happen. Just the same, though, character agency means what they do, not only do they have a choice in what they do, but just as important, those choices are impactful into the world around them, right? So, working with your example, if they get into an argument with the guard, right, and later climb the wall, like you said, they took actions and that impacts the world around them. Now, or maybe they beat up the guard, right? So now they're wanted in town and there are wanted posters all over all over town for them because
Yeah.
their actions impacted the world around them. That's player agency. Not only do they get to choose, but there are rewards and consequences for their actions. Player
I
agency.
guess linear is railroad. I mean, linear can be described as a sort of railroad, and even though it's plot driven, I feel like linear would describe railroading more. I enjoy the word roller coaster because roller coasters have the dips and the turns and the you know I brought you up here manually, but now gravity's taking you down. And you guys went upside down for a couple seconds, and now you guys are sideways for a couple seconds.
Well,
And it's not a straight push.
yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I like the
Yeah,
description of that, right? There's ups and downs and there's twists and turns.
I
Yes.
posted a thing.
The only thing I'll challenge you on in terms of railroading or assimilating linear to railroading is railroading only allows you one option. So it's really not an option, right? So, you can't talk to the guard because he's deaf, he's a mute, whatever it is. So you
Right.
can't talk to him. And there's a wall all the way around the city, so there's no other way to get in. But as you walk around, this is one door. No, that's locked. But that one over there is unlocked. So that's the only way you can get into the city. That's railroading, not giving them
Right.
options, right? So that's different than linear. Linear is more storyline based and not individual action based.
Like
Whereas
a timeline.
whereas railroading is individual action based. This is the only way you can accomplish this. This is the only way to get in the room. There's no other. It doesn't allow for creativity, exploration,
Yeah,
nothing.
I don't like that.
You know,
I don't. I
that that's
definitely don't do
that's
that.
more railroading. So I kind of,
Yeah.
I don't want to say take
No.
offense, but I challenge you on your assimilation of railroading to linear. Linear is the broadest storyline of, hey, listen, ultimately what you guys need to do is go fight this big bad evil guy, right? But before that happens, you make your way into town and you need to talk to this guy because when you talk to this guy, he's going to give you this information that's going to put you over here. When you go over there, then you learn this. When you go over there, you get this piece of equipment to go fight the big bad guy. Now you can
The
circumvent
quest
all
line
that, right? And go straight for the big bad
to go
guy,
and fight that
but
guy.
it may not work out well for you, right?
Yeah.
Or once you guys get to this point, then the festival happens. And during the festival, there's the murder. So I can't have the murder until there's the festival. I can't have the festival until you get there. That's linear.
Right.
That's linear. So it's not railroading because if the players don't go there, then the festival's not going to happen. And that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, right? When you're trying to nudge your players in a certain direction. If they don't get that information, if they don't go to this tavern, whatever it is, right? And so therefore
Yeah. Whatever the example
the
was.
festival doesn't happen, then the festival doesn't happen. And the players missed out on whatever's supposed to be, subsequent to that. So now they need to figure out what they were supposed to do because they're not going to get the information from the festival that didn't happen because they didn't do XYZ. So linear.
And that's
Um,
why you have to put it back in their face again. You have to put them back on path.
correct. And you have to do
Yeah.
that very subtly and very gently and not be so overt with it and say, well, here you go. Because if you just feed it to them, then we're still
Then
pulling away
they
from
hate
player
it.
agency, right? So you have to kind of slowly introduce that and let them find that piece by piece and not just spoon feed it to them. Now, as an example of borderline spoon feeding in our Tuesday night game, you guys found that map, right?
You spoon fed us the map.
To go from Orlane to Big Bad Evil Guy, right? Like, okay, so as the DM, and you saw
Did
that,
we miss it?
no, so I showed you what a first edition module looks like. There's 3 pages. That's it,
Yeah. Nothing.
right?
Yeah.
So how am I going to get you from point A, Orlane, to point B, Big Bad Evil Guy, when he's a week's travel away? You guys pieced
Yeah.
together what was happening, but you had no idea what the hell the Big Bad Guy Evil was.
No idea. Don't
So,
even know who he is.
so,
We thought he was one guy, and he's not even one guy.
so is
He's a
that
different
on
guy.
me? Like I didn't role play that as a DM. I didn't role play well enough to kind of guide you guys in that direction, or did you guys just miss it? I don't know. So how do I help the party, help the players get to their essentially their final objective? If they don't get there, then we lost the whole module, right? We'll be in
Yeah.
this
Now
module
it's a different module.
forever until they finally figure this out. And I have to kind of nudge them one way or another. So I came up with the idea of the map. And even when you had the map, you still didn't know really exactly what you're looking for. You just had an idea where you needed to go, right?
We hung on to the map for a solid like 2 sessions
Yeah.
before we were like, wait, it's 2 maps.
And that is how like I try to avoid just spoon feeding it to you, right? Like it's still something you guys need to figure this out, right? So you guys, so the players saw a couple of questionable guys at the tavern. They followed the guys out. I don't know if they got into a confrontation. I think they beat them up or something. And the guys found the
I
map.
thought Rustin got beat up.
It's something, but that's how the players found the map. So on the map there were two kind of distinct sections, but 2 sections on this one piece of paper, 2 maps on this one piece of paper. But it was kind of beat up and dilapidated and so on. And it took the players, like Julie said, 2 or 3 weeks, 2 or 3 sessions to figure out that this map was 2 separate maps. And
We held on to it.
even at that, I don't think they figured it out on their own. I think one of the NPCs had to nudge them again to figure that out. And the only reason why I had to do that as the DM is because without that, the campaign's dead.
The last nudge to determine was very small. Very, very small. Because it clicked into my head and I had to tell the entire party as soon as I got it what was going on. somebody told me something. I can't remember what NPC told me, but it was a very small hint, and I was like, "Oh my god!" and it like clicked, and the universe came together, and I had to explain the party my big brain idea.
And that is an example of, you know, not spoon feeding everything, right? Giving you a little bit, and let you guys figure it out. But as the DM, as I said, I had to give you a little bit, give you, because if you guys didn't go there, the campaign's
You're just stuck
over,
in town.
right? You're stuck in
Yeah.
town forever. So at some point, I had to kind of another crumb, another crumb, another crumb, another crumb
Playing
until you
drinking
guys figured
games.
it out. So, but that's not, I wouldn't consider that railroading by any means. You guys figured it
No.
out,
Yeah,
you
it's
know.
linear.
But it is very linear because you can't get to the big bad guy till you figure out where he is. Even if you don't know who he is, right? You need to know where he is. And it took us several sessions in town to gather enough information here and there and a lot of social interactions to even figure that out, right?
Yeah.
To get a sense of who or where this big bad guy is. So definitely not much more linear than railroading by all means. I would not say, I'm not saying this defensively, but I wouldn't say that was railroading at all. So allowing the players their agency to figure shit out on their own. Just give them enough information, and they'll enough pieces of the puzzle. Hopefully, the fewer pieces of the puzzle, the better for them to figure it out. Because it's, but you have to give them enough pieces of the puzzle, piece by
It's
piece
gut
over
wrenching
time
sometimes.
to figure it out.
And you're sitting there and they're saying stuff, and you're like,
Yes. Yes, and like you, I was like, okay, well, you guys said you wanted to go. Romney asked you to go back and talk to him after the temple. You want to go back? No, 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 no. We're going to press on. You sure you don't want to go back? No, no, no. We're just going to leave the city. Okay. He
I
told you
mentioned
go talk to him.
the ladies at the bar that Torgler went to go talk to at least 3 times. Nobody went and talked to them, and I was like, they'll go back into the bar eventually.
And Artie and I were talking about that, like that whole group of players who have been playing in this campaign for a few months chose to ignore
Everyone in
these
the room.
NPCs. Now, of course, if you are not familiar with D&D, typically when the DM takes some time to describe a person, place, or thing, it's usually
It's
with
important.
purpose. It's usually because it deserves a little bit of your attention. Not always, but oftentimes it deserves a little bit of your attention. And 7 players, 7 out of 8, completely ignored these 3 women who were described to us in this bar and just left and moved on to other things. And I as the player who has no idea what the hell's going on in this campaign, none, said, and I'm not sure why I did, like what my character's interest was. I think because they were looked different or they were colorful or something, I don't know, whatever it was. But I went and I spoke to them for a couple minutes.
You
And
thought they were Egyptian, and they were
oh, yeah,
Egyptian,
yeah.
and you're
Well,
like, well,
that
that
was part
changes
of it.
my
Yeah, that was
entire.
part of it. Um,
You're like, shit.
so I had a little social. My character had a little social interaction with these 3 non-player characters, NPCs, and then I later went back and kind of shared that with the party. And then at that point, it had a little bit of their interest. Had a little bit of their interest. So I just
Well,
think,
now they might go back, but
well,
now
yeah,
that you've been like,
now,
hey, they talked to me about some shit.
but I wonder as the player, like I wonder what would happen if they would have missed that altogether. What would they have been missing out on? Don't say anything, Julie, for spoiler alert. But like I wonder what they would have been missing out on. I don't know. You know, would it really have been impactful? And now they have to work that much harder because they wouldn't have gotten that information from those NPCs, and they would have to figure it out some other way. Or is it really just a little bit of flavor, right? A little bit of extra. I suspect, as the player, it wasn't just there for the purpose of being there. Okay, it wasn't. These 3 women, these 3 NPCs, had purpose at that bar for the party. They were essentially inserted into this campaign for a reason. Okay, plot hook, planting a seed, whatever it is, whatever you want to call it. I call it anyway. They're there for a reason, and to not engage with them and completely dismiss them, I think, was an oversight. So I hope the party appreciates that I was able to get just enough information from those ladies to share with the party for the party to then say, hey, maybe we should go back and talk to them because
They might not even remember.
they because I think those three ladies have something to offer. I don't know what it is. I'm not sure how story relevant it is 'cause I don't know the story, but I suspect they have something to offer. So, but that happens, right? That happens. But therein lies player agency, right? We're talking agency versus storyline.
Yep,
So
they decide to fuck up.
the players had the agency, the opportunity to talk to them or not. That was their choice, right? So they exercised their player agency to walk right on by and do nothing.
Right,
That's their
right.
agency. That's their choice. Okay. And it should impact the game. If those characters, those three ladies, had something important for the party to know or obtain, information, item, whatever, then now the party's missing out on that. And there should be, I don't want to say repercussions, but should affect
Consequence.
it should affect how things go moving forward because they don't have that information, they don't have that item, whatever it is. So they're going to be at a disadvantage until they figure it out or then go back and obtain that.
Right.
So that's player agency. So balancing player agency versus story. Do I somehow force that information on them, make sure they have it because it's pertinent, relevant to the story, and they need it? Or do I let them miss it and say, well, sorry, you missed it? That's the balance.
Sucks to suck.
And for me as the DM, I say, sorry, you missed it. You know?
There's a really, really, really back side thing that one of my players has as one of their secrets. And they've remembered uh, to keep track of their secret. And if they forgot their secret existed or forgot it was, still a thing, they would probably be missing the crumbs I've been giving them every once in a while. I haven't been giving them a lot of crumbs, but they've gotten a couple, and they are now on to something that they don't think the rest of the party quite fully understands because it was a secret that they had.
So working with that idea, think about our Tuesday night game that you play in with me. That at the start of the campaign, every character, i.e., player,
And a bunch of
had a couple
rumors.
rumors or pieces of information, right? And I forget exactly what it was, but there was one session we were playing, and I think it was you. The light bulb went on and said, "Oh my God, could it really be this?" And there were once or twice I had to go back and say, "Guys, don't forget to look at your rumors. Don't forget to look what you started with." And then everyone went back and looked
Alithana
at it
had
again,
one.
and they said, "Oh my God, yeah," because everyone totally forgot about it. You know?
I had one that was important. It led us to Romney and Vilna. And then Alithana had one that was like, "Why didn't you tell us that sooner?" And she's like, "I forgot they existed." I can't remember what hers
So
was,
I guess
but
one could argue is why as the DM why would I go back and tell them go check your rumors? Well, because just because I'm the DM, it doesn't mean I'm working against the players. I'm working for the players. I'm an
no,
advocate for the characters. I'm here to help them out. You
collaborative.
know, I'm not going to just give them the game, so to speak, but we work together. And especially for me as the DM, especially with new players, because we have some players who, or at least one, who's brand spanking new to RPG, to
Yeah,
D&D, and a
period.
couple of others who are new to first edition. It's more so the RPG thing, right? So I don't have a problem helping my players a little bit, especially when they're new players. Now, if we've been playing for 3 or 4 years, or the players have been playing for 3, 4, 5, 10 years, that's different.
They forget.
Then you shouldn't need my help. You shouldn't need help from the DM like a new player would. So I have new players. I don't mind helping them out a little bit of guidance in this as a player, um, to help them along. But as they
A couple of
advance,
mine
as they
are
get
new.
more
Yeah.
experience as a player and their characters get more experience, then I take another step back, and a step back, and a step back, and leave it all up to them, all the more to figure stuff out. And if they miss those rumors, then they miss those rumors. But all right, I've been talking a lot on this one, Julie. Usually you're the talker.
Well, it's just because I these were questions. These were a lot of like role play based questions, and so I wanted to try and do questions that because you say that role play isn't your biggest strength. um, or that you claim that improv or role play aren't your greatest strengths. And so I wanted to try and do something along those lines because we've done no initiative combat like 3 times because I suck at it, or monster tactics because I suck at it. So I wanted to try and do one that I was maybe more comfortable with, I
Okay.
guess, or one that I agreed on, and so that I could hear maybe your side of it, so that I could then give you my side of it. But
Okay. Ready, go. What's your side?
my side of player agency versus,
Yeah.
I mean, I agreed with almost everything you said. Um, it's definitely interesting to have to carrot them along, but you don't want to carrot them along. I've been trying to be better about being more secretive and giving away less information because, as I have been told, I am sadly horrible about keeping secrets or keeping it to myself or giving away too much information. I had a couple people, and so then I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll get better at it because when you do it, I really like it. It really gives me something extra for the game. And so I was like, well, if I like it, I know that my players are going to like it because you DM that way and I enjoy it. So everybody else must because they enjoy me. Um, and so I've been trying to be more active. Ooh, I knocked my camera out. That's what I get. Hang on. Goodbye, camera. I knew thee well. But it definitely can be a little funny not giving them everything because you don't know if they're going to find it again. And what are you going to do if you don't? And that's where I was talking about curveballs, player
Mm-hmm.
curveballs. Or they do something so chaotic, it might break your game on accident. I was playing that one shot, and James walked up to literally the final boss and almost signed his name on him. You know what I would have had to do? I would have had to blow that bar up. I would have had to cast. Oh my god, I would have had to cast all kinds of crazy ass shit, and I would have just nuked all of them. And all the other players were like, "No, James, don't!" And I think Tiana gave him the people's elbow and like knocked him out of the way before he could do something stupid. So like at that point, they curve their own ball, and I feel like that happens more so in my party than in other parties, especially in our Tuesday group. If Rustin does the thing and there's no one to check him, then he gets a little out of hand. But that's how he likes to play. He likes the
Right.
chaos.
And
It's
that's it.
funny.
That's his character that he has created. Right. Yeah.
Right, and he has to play it how it is. It is what it is, and whatever happens, happens. Um, But and my table does that too. They usually correct their own curveballs. But at some point in time, so last on Friday, there was a shadowy figure in the mist during a
Mm-hmm.
funeral.
Yep.
And somebody said something. You did. You said, "How far away are they?" And I was like, "Oh fuck." I said, "He's gonna fire an arrow at Strahd."
Well,
Like,
well, but see, I couldn't because
fuck.
I didn't perceive that.
No, you didn't see him. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Like
I was like,
I don't know why the party didn't do something. Again,
that you gave them the idea,
I
and
mean,
I was like, someone's gonna do something
even
stupid.
going back to what I said a minute ago, when the DM describes
Shit!
something, there's a reason why they're pointing something out.
It was to
Now,
be spooky.
it doesn't necessarily mean it's actionable, but it's being pointed out for a reason, okay? And no one seemed concerned or interested that this
What I
shadowy
should have done,
figure was over there.
what I should have done is texted it to the people who got high perception. I should have like done it secretly on the side on the DL.
And that is one of the nice things about online play is I can send
Yeah,
the different players a little private message, direct message,
really
saying you
fast.
don't think it's this or you notice that, and then leave it to that player to say something or not. The drawback is they may not see the message because we're
Yeah, they
enthralled
might
in the
not catch it.
gameplay, you know. But yeah, I get it. I get what you're saying. But let me ask you something. You said
I could have, I guess, thrown a note. I could have been like, eh.
so. You said that you like the way that I do it on Tuesdays. What were you
The secrets, the withholding information,
okay, okay,
the
okay.
crumbing, the tidbitting,
So yeah, and
the seeding.
another thing I try to do too is try to be
I'm not very good at it.
a little cryptic sometimes. Like when you guys are talking to
I'm definitely not good
Romney,
at that.
he doesn't just spell it all out for you. He gives you a little bit, and it kind of gets you guys thinking and makes you wonder, like what the hell was he talking about? Oh, but wait, he said that, and then she said that. So do you think it means this? So like I try really hard to be kind of cryptic in a way to allow you
I
guys
think you
to
get better
figure it
at
out, to
it.
allow you the agency to figure it out without me just saying this is it.
And I've been hinting at that with Irina's suitor, and I haven't said the word, and nobody else has said the word, and Irina hasn't said the word, but I have been hinting at it very hardcore, so much so that everybody probably already knows what I'm talking about, and it has now become a sort of Voldemort situation. He who shall not be named. But eventually it'll break, and I'm waiting for there's a this is a semi spoiler because it's gonna happen on Friday. There's the if you're watching this before Friday the 25th,
No, I want to
you
put
know,
I'm going to post
skip
it after
ahead
that.
5
Yeah.
minutes. Um, but they're gonna meet him. They're gonna meet this suitor for the first time, and he's gonna do things, and it's gonna be interesting. And then they will know, and then names will be given, and names will be iterated, and it will not be a Voldemort situation any longer. But I really want to try and keep it like
So I still as we are talking about last night, I still can't believe no one went to go or do anything with the shadowy figure in the mist.
it's supposed to just be spooky. It
I
wasn't
know,
supposed to do
but
anything.
even still, why not go out and check out and just to make sure it's there spooky and it's just nothing. Even if it dissipated,
Chase,
even if it dissipated when I got there.
Chase, like stood there at the ready, like waiting to do something, and then he just disappears after the funeral's over.
Yeah,
Nothing
I'll tell you,
happens.
as a player, had I seen that figure, oh, so would have done something.
Oh my god,
I so would have
no.
done something. I really would have.
Oh god,
But anyway,
they like imploded the fucking cemetery.
but I didn't. Just like I didn't say anything about the meat pie or whatever it is, and I didn't use
Oh,
a
correct. You didn't metagame.
and I didn't revivify, resurrect the dead guy with my
The dad.
scroll, and anyway. So all right. So are we good on player agency versus story for now?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I have one.
We derailed our other subject, but it's
That's
okay.
okay. I have one other question or comment, observation. I don't know what to call it. So, Julie's rule number one as a DM is don't break my game.
Yes,
Don't
so
break my
much
game.
so
Okay.
that everyone
So,
at the table could probably recite it.
okay. So, I was thinking about this a little bit. Why must you say that? Like,
I don't like min-maxers.
why does that have to be your rule number one? Don't break my game. As the DM, you have full control over the game, so no one should even be able to break your game. Go ahead.
With the advent of 2024 D&D 5e, it's the main thing that I tell people not to do. I used to do it for one shots all the time because for a one shot you can be whoever the fuck you want to be, regardless of if it is homebrew or not homebrew, or it's in Tasha's or it's in Xanathar's or it's in this handbook or it's in that handbook, or if it's off of the internet somewhere. Usually it doesn't matter for a one shot. So I got used to saying it for one shots because if you want to be some crazy, fox person with a gajillion AC and nothing ever hits you, it's a one shot. Who cares? But in a campaign, if you want to do that shit in my campaign, it's not going to be fun.
Okay, so that
So
is
do it.
easily relegated at session zero when you say, here's the player's handbook 2020, right?
2014.
2014. And you say, these are the races you can be, these are the classes you can be. That's it. Those are your options. If you don't like
I
it,
have to I have one player who doesn't have the 2014 stuff, and I really don't want to force them to have to get it, whether that be free electronically or not.
Yeah, I
So
was
I
going to
just
say PDF
let
is
them,
free. PDF is free.
I know. I just let them play with what they got because I don't want to have to force them to do something they're uncomfortable with.
Again,
But
you can't please everyone.
no. Um, so I also, when they show me things, and sometimes they'll be like, here, Julie, check this out. Is it okay if I do this? I don't really know ass from elbows for if it's broken or not. I know some things. There are some things I'm like, oh, fuck that. No, thank you. But there are other things where I'm like, this looks cool. And then, it's broken as fuck and I don't realize it. And I've already said okay.
Right. So if you stick, then I think if you stick to the Player's Handbook 2014 as is, you should be okay. If it's not in the Player's Handbook, it doesn't happen.
Right.
You know.
A lot of people like to do Tasha's and Xanathars a lot. Like artificers. To be an artificer is not in the 2014 handbook, and a lot of people like that class. Um, and same with there's a couple other ones in there that aren't in the 2014 Player's Handbook, and it's become so commonplace that it's in another actual Dungeons and Dragons handbook. It's Tasha's Guide to
So right.
Everything,
Okay. But
the
right.
Xanathar's Guide to Everything, whatever.
And you could and I've done something similar with 1E where you could say everything in the Player's Handbook is cool. Whatever you want to do with the Player's Handbook. But I will also allow this one class or artificer from Tasha's book. That's what you can be, right? So it's okay as the DM to put those confines on the players so that
Right.
they're not all over the board and you have no idea what the hell's going on with these characters. And if someone only has 2024 and you're playing 2014, then they need to play 2014 because it's not fair to everyone else who's kind of falling in line with 2014 and this one guy over here is playing 2024. It doesn't
Right.
for me as the DM it doesn't reconcile. Like it's okay for the DM to say no, this is what we're doing. Now the there is a paladin. How many? You have more than one paladin in this group or just one? Two. Okay. Then I guess I'll have to clarify or specify. The young lady who was sitting next to me was a paladin.
She's a Dex Paladin.
Okay. Is that? I thought she said to me it's a homebrew.
It is. It's a specific critical role homebrew. It's just a paladin, but instead of them being strong and loud, they're quiet and stealthy. But she doesn't have the same AC as a paladin. But
Okay.
she has similar spells as a paladin. To tell you the truth, it's kind of like a multi-class. It's if took one level in paladin and then the rest of her levels are in rogue. She's like a rogue pally.
Okay. So
She's like a multi-class.
where I'm going with this is if you, Julie, as the DM, and you've expressed this before, your level of comfort, your level of familiarity with the rules, your level of
I let
experience,
Chase double check that one.
um, why? Like I just challenge you.
Chase said it was fine.
I challenge you in just in general, like why are you allowing these outside classes that you're not familiar with and you don't have documentation on? You know.
Usually because I'm too trustworthy.
So again, player's handbook. This is what you can
I
be.
trust that they're going to be responsible adults because I'm playing with a room of adults, except for Jules.
Because again, Julie's rule number one: don't break my game. Well, if they're not doing these random classes and stuff, and they're sticking to the player's handbook, there's no way you should break your game because the player's handbook or the Curse of Strahd is made to be met or played with the
2014.
player's handbook.
And
So
I told them that.
if you
And
put
they're
those
like,
two things
because
together, there should be no problems.
Peyton said the same thing. She was like, can I just do 2024? And I was like, well, it's made for 2014. And she's like, well, why don't you just run Strata's 2024? And I said, well, there's just too much. I would have to overhaul the whole campaign. There's no way. And at the time, the monster manual hadn't even come out yet.
Oh yeah, the new
There
one,
was
yeah,
no right, no monster manual. All I had was the Dungeon Master's Guide, which I don't even own, and the Player's Handbook, which I don't even own. I'm blurry.
you are.
Hello?
All right, do you at least have PDFs of those?
The new ones? No. Well,
Uh,
actually, yes, because my Saturday, my every other Saturday, the guy bought them electronically, and then he linked them to the campaign. So I
okay,
have them through D&D Beyond.
okay. But do you have the 2014 versions?
Oh yeah,
Okay,
physical copies. Yeah.
okay, all
And
right,
so while Peyton was at session 0, everybody just flooded her with books. And we're just like, here you go, take all the things, take all the things, take all the things, read all the things, And she built her character with the 2014 Player's Handbook,
okay.
and then she used an app suggested by another player that way because D&D Beyond is really bad about its legacy stuff, about doing 2014, and they sneak this 2025 bullshit into the
Yeah,
2014 stuff.
I've heard that. Yeah.
It's like snuck in, and I hate it. I hate it. Oh, it makes me so angry. Anyway, um, that's my soapbox. But she made her character on session 0, and she was like, "Okay, there we go. I'm done. Congratulations." And now she has, if she wanted to look at other stuff, she has the app, I think it's 5e Tools. 5e Tools has like everything, and she could just look it up. The only person who's still on 2024 was because for Fandelver, I let them do 2024 is James.
James.
And I think, well, and so now James is a DM, and I think he now has the knowledge that he has more access to things than he probably did previously, even though he's running his campaign in 2024
Hmm.
and not in 2014. I feel like now he's a more player player growth. He's
Hmm.
gotten more player growth, and maybe I should try and dial him back. The only problem is that now he's made a character, he has to stick with it. I let him do it for Chris Estrad. He's a 2024 warlock and not a 2014 warlock,
Okay, but
and
the
it'll break his
warlock,
character if he switches back.
but the warlock exists in 2014, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I understand what you're saying. Like, oh, yeah, like I allowed it. He created this character, and I get it. And you always want to avoid backpedaling on that, but sometimes you have to. And I think for most players or most games, if you notify them ahead of time, and that could be several sessions ahead of time, say, hey, we're changing this house rule, or we're now going to do our no initiative combat without XYZ. I already forgot. Um, then they're okay with it. And
Oh, uh,
whatever it is, but
um,
I can't imagine that there's enough of a difference between this warlock in 2014 and
opportunity attacks.
2024 that he would say, well, no, man, that sucks. I don't want to play that anymore then. There can't be that much of a difference
Oh,
between those two versions.
I don't think his build exists in 2014. I think it's a new subclass.
I don't know. It sounds like I want to say that's a level of complexity in 5e that I don't grasp or I'm not aware of. So
Subclasses.
I'm not going to say I don't grasp. I'm just not aware of all these little subclasses um, that we're referencing because a warlock should be a warlock, period. You know, but I get it. I recognize that there's all these subclasses, but I'm not familiar enough with them to really comment on that. But all right, Julie. On that
Yeah.
note, I'm going to stop our video here in a second. We're going to wrap it
Yep,
up.
dinner time.
Yep, that too. So we are concluding episode
5.
five of Roll for Mastery, where we talked about player agency versus story, finding the balance and what's important, or what's more important, what's not important, and so on. So that's what we talked about. And I think our audio worked all the
Cool.
way through. Woohoo! Yay
Woo!
for us.
You can hear me.
All right. So peace out for all those who are watching.
Cub Scout.